Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox and welcome to a special 5-part series on popcorn and compliance, the podcast series where I look at compliance through the lens of Hollywood movies. This month I start a special 5-part series on the classic Universal movie monsters from the 30s and 40s. I mine 5 of them for compliance lessons learned. We include Frankenstein, Dracula, the Wolfman, the Mummy, and we conclude with the Invisible Man. Today we conclude our special 5-part series by looking in a very different direction with Claude Rains as the Invisible Man and what happens when compliance is invisible. Over this series we have considered compliance lessons from characters as varied as Frankenstein's monster to Bela Lugosi's Count Dracula and Lon Chaney Jr. as the Wolfman. We then took a deep dive from 2,000 years ago to the present to consider the compliance lessons from the Mummy next week. So I hope you have enjoyed this series. If this is your first episode in this special 5-part series, I hope you'll go back and listen to all 5 of the episodes. I had a ton of fun producing it, and I hope you will enjoy the lessons learned from the Mummy. And now, Fiona and Timothy on Claude Rains as the Invisible Man.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a truly unexpected turn. We're inviting you to look at a chilling, classic monster movie. Yes, a monster movie from 1933, The Invisible Man.
That's right, starring the incredible Claude Rains.
Exactly. And believe it or not, this film offers far more than just scares. We're going to explore how this cinematic masterpiece actually functions as, well, a really powerful allegory for business and organizational compliance.
It really does. It's surprisingly relevant.
So if you haven't seen it, the story centers on Jack Griffin. He's this brilliant scientist, but ultimately he becomes completely unhinged.
Right, he discovers a formula for invisibility.
He does. And this newfound freedom from being seen, it just leads him down a very dark path. It's a complete unraveling of his restraint, his morality. He descends into madness, violence, destruction.
And what's striking, I think, is that unlike some other classic monsters, Griffin isn't really a victim of fate or some supernatural curse.
No, not at all. His undoing is purely the result of unchecked power. The invisibility itself enables it.
That really is the crux of it, isn't it? His genius isn't corrupted by, some external force, but by the absence of accountability. And that right there is the core of our deep dive today.
Okay.
We're going to unpack how Griffin's story perfectly illustrates critical lessons for compliance. Lessons about transparency, accountability, and the inherent, often hidden risks of unseen actions.
Right.
The central idea we're exploring is this. When actions go unseen, misconduct is most likely to flourish. So the essential task, really, of any robust compliance program is to, make the invisible visible.
Make the invisible visible. I like that.
Yeah, and we've identified 5 distinct takeaways from this classic film that offer, I think, some surprising and crucial insights for any organization. And it's kind of a shortcut to understanding some fundamental truths.
Okay, 5 takeaways from The Invisible Man for compliance.
Yeah.
That's a clear mission. So let's jump straight into our first lesson. It really seems to emerge the moment Griffin gains his power, doesn't it?
Indeed it does. Lesson 1 is that a lack of transparency doesn't just allow misconduct. It actively breeds it. Think about Griffin's transformation. Instantly. The moment he becomes invisible, he sheds the ordinary social constraints that guide, everyday behavior. He knows others can't see him, and that gives him this immediate, almost intoxicating sense of impunity.
He becomes bolder, definitely more reckless.
And alarmingly quickly, violent. The film shows him almost immediately using his invisibility to steal, to terrorize people, to just wreak havoc without facing any immediate consequences.
He literally walks into an inn, causes chaos, assaults people.
Throws things around in a police station.
Right. Because he can. It's a terrifying display of power. So how does that translate to the, let's say, less dramatic, but maybe equally dangerous corporate world?
Well, that's the exact parallel we need to consider. It's the same insidious danger corporations face when certain operations or transactions or even relationships with third parties are allowed to function without full transparency. We're talking about what we might call invisible spaces, maybe hidden bank accounts, complex shell companies, off-the-books payments. These aren't just obscure corners. They become fertile ground where bribery, fraud, all sorts of misconduct can thrive unchecked.
And regulators focus on this.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Regulatory bodies like the DOJ and the SEC here in the U.S. consistently emphasize transparency as a cornerstone of compliance. Why? Because opacity isn't just a vulnerability. It's often the ultimate enabler of wrongdoing. When no one can truly see what's happening, trust just erodes.
Right. Even legitimate actions might start looking suspicious if things are too opaque.
Exactly. The whole system starts to break down.
So if the problem is this lack of visibility, these hidden dealings, what are the most common blind spots you see in practice? And what should a compliance team really prioritize to, shine a light on them?
Yeah, the compliance takeaway here is critical. Organizations have to aggressively work to eliminate these blind spots. And this isn't just theoretical. It means implementing concrete, proactive measures.
Like what?
Like, for instance, really leveraging data analytics to detect unusual transaction patterns, things that deviate from the norm. It means requiring comprehensive, detailed disclosures from all third parties your organization engages with. No exceptions.
Okay.
And crucially, it's about insisting on clear, consistent documentation for every process, every payment, every significant decision. While invisibility might seem thrilling in fiction,
Definitely not in business.
definitely not. In business, it's a direct path to misconduct, potentially severe penalties, and lasting reputational damage. Your job as a compliance professional is essentially to ensure that nothing important can hide.
Making the invisible visible. No blind spots.
Got it.
And that leads us perfectly into our second lesson, which feels like the flip side of transparency, accountability.
Exactly. Power without accountability is, quite simply, a recipe for abuse. Think about Griffin's most infamous boast in the film.
Oh yeah, an invisible man can rule the world. No one will see him come, no one will see him go.
Precisely. He absolutely revels in this unchecked power. But stripped of accountability, his brilliance, his, groundbreaking scientific achievement, it just rapidly devolves into pure tyranny. He's no longer driven by discovery. It's this twisted desire for domination.
It's chilling how fast that happens.
Yeah.
He starts out maybe with scientific goals, but the power of being unseen just completely corrupts him. But isn't there an argument sometimes you hear this, that giving a top performer a bit more leeway can actually foster innovation? Allow them to push boundaries? Where's that line between empowering someone and enabling unchecked power?
That's a really important question, and it gets to a constant tension in, frankly, any high-performing organization. Because yes, we absolutely want to empower talent, encourage innovation, but that leeway cannot extend to fundamental ethical and compliance boundaries.
Right.
The danger lies in creating these real-world invisible men or women within your own ranks. We're talking about that high-performance salesperson who brings in massive revenue, but maybe constantly skirts the compliance controls.
Or ignores them entirely.
Or ignores them. Or the regional manager who operates sort of off the radar. Perhaps even a senior executive whose behavior goes unquestioned simply because of their position or their past successes.
The untouchables.
The untouchables. Without robust oversight and clear consequences, these individuals can manipulate systems, they can pressure subordinates into unethical actions, and ultimately expose the entire company to massive legal and reputational harm. The line is crossed, I think, when empowerment morphs into exemption.
Empowerment shouldn't mean exemption. That's a powerful distinction. So how do we ensure that accountability is truly embedded, especially when dealing with these high flyers or senior leaders?
The compliance takeaway here is to meticulously build accountability into every level of the organization, ensuring absolutely no one is exempt. And I mean no one.
Not the star performers.
Not your star performers, not your senior leaders. This means establishing clear, accessible escalation pathways for reporting concerns. It means ensuring there's independent reporting, maybe directly to the board, that bypasses traditional hierarchies. And critically consistent, equitable enforcement of rules for everyone. These measures are the safeguards. They ensure power never escapes accountability, no matter where it sits in the hierarchy. It's about designing a system where everyone knows their actions will eventually become visible.
That's a crucial point. Even the most brilliant person can become a huge liability without those checks.
Yeah.
Which brings us, I think, very naturally to our third lesson, the absolutely crucial role of culture.
Culture, yes. Culture determines whether controls actually work. What makes Griffin's story so chilling isn't just his invisibility itself.
It's how people react.
It's how the people around him react to it. At first, they're horrified, understandably. But then some characters fall into denial, right? Hoping the threat will just go away.
Where they're fascinated.
Others are almost fascinated, drawn in by his apparent power, his big pronouncements, and ultimately, fear dominates. No one really wants to confront him directly. They know he's there, causing mayhem, but they're paralyzed.
So it's not just about Griffin's actions, but the collective human response, or lack of response, to an unseen problem that compounds the danger. It sounds like the environment around the problem is just as critical as the problem itself.
Precisely. And this dynamic directly mirrors corporate culture. You can have the most meticulously designed compliance controls, the most detailed policies, procedures, manuals thicker than phone books.
Right, the best binders on the shelf.
Exactly. But if the culture of the organization tolerates misconduct or ignores warning signs or maybe allows fear to silence employees, those controls are essentially elaborate window dressing. They will ultimately fail.
Because no one uses them or they work around them.
Exactly. Culture dictates whether employees feel safe to speak up or if they stay silent. It determines whether compliance officers are respected and empowered or if they're marginalized, ignored. It's the invisible force that truly decides if ethical boundaries are enforced or just bypassed because of, say, a collective silence or an overwhelming push for results at any cost.
Okay, if culture is this profound, almost invisible force shaping everything, what's the compliance officer's most effective role in shaping it? It feels like something much broader, maybe deeper, than just checking boxes on a form.
Oh, absolutely. It's much deeper. The compliance takeaway is that compliance officers must relentlessly work to shape and measure culture, actively working to foster what we call psychological safety.
How do you measure something like culture?
Well, it goes far beyond just formal training sessions, though those have a place. It means conducting regular, anonymous culture surveys to really pinpoint sentiment and areas of concern. It means digging deep into hotline data, not just counting reports, but analyzing trends to spot potentially systemic issues.
Looking for patterns.
And it involves running candid focus groups to get unfiltered feedback directly from employees, showing that their voices are actually heard and valued. These tools are just as important as, say, transaction monitoring. Because if employees are too afraid to confront misconduct,
or just too focused on hitting targets,
or too focused on results to ask uncomfortable questions, then even the most robust compliance controls will never truly succeed. They'll just be ignored or circumvented.
It's fascinating how the film shows that human element. The fear, the denial, the fascination, and how it directly influences the outcome. And speaking of human elements pushing boundaries, let's talk about innovation. Our fourth lesson is about risk becoming exponential when innovation outpaces ethics.
Yes, and here's where it gets really interesting for today's companies, I think. The Invisible Man is, at its core, a profound cautionary tale about innovation. Jack Griffin's formula. It's groundbreaking, a scientific marvel for its time.
Absolute.
But it's developed entirely without ethical consideration, without proper risk assessment, without any kind of oversight. His scientific achievement dramatically outpaces his moral responsibility, and that leads to utter catastrophe. He's so focused on the can we do this, he never stops to ask, should we?
It's the classic mad scientist trope, isn't it?
Yeah.
But with a very clear, very modern message about the dangers of unchecked scientific or technological progress. We see this discussion everywhere today with emerging tech.
That's the exact parallel. This is the same challenge corporations face right now with cutting-edge fields like artificial intelligence, AI, biotechnology, new financial technologies, you name it. Innovation is incredibly valuable, even necessary for progress.
Of course.
But when ethics and compliance lag behind that rapid pace of development, risks don't just increase, they multiply exponentially. Think about a new AI feature that could deliver amazing efficiency, but also has, say, unintended biases baked in.
Or a new medical tech with unknown long-term side effects or ESG implications.
Exactly. Regulators are increasingly focused on whether companies are proactively assessing the ethical implications of their innovations, not just celebrating the technical achievements or the market potential. The damage from a purely technological triumph, if the ethical foundation isn't there, can far outweigh its benefits.
So, if the risks multiply when ethics are an afterthought, what's the proactive approach here? How do you keep up with innovation without stifling it, without becoming, the Department of No?
That's the goal, right? To be an enabler, not just a gatekeeper. The compliance takeaway is that compliance must be embedded innovation from the very beginning. It absolutely cannot be an afterthought, something bolted on once the product is already designed or the new market is entered.
So integrate it early.
Integrate it early. New products, new markets, new technologies, they should undergo rigorous compliance risk assessments right alongside the financial reviews, the technical reviews, the safety reviews. This means bringing compliance, legal, and ethical considerations into the initial brainstorming, the development phases. Ethics has to guide innovation from the start. It's about building a foundation of responsible development, not scrambling to fix problems after they've already emerged and potentially caused significant harm.
Embed compliance early. That's a clear and practical directive. Okay, and now for our fifth and final lesson. This one is about what happens when things inevitably go wrong, whether the cause was invisible or not. Crisis preparedness.
Crisis preparedness, absolutely non-negotiable. Think about the film's climax again. The villagers, the authorities, they're thrown into absolute chaos.
Complete panic.
Complete panic. They have no plan, no procedures, nothing in place for dealing with an invisible adversary. Griffin wreaks havoc, not necessarily because he's truly invincible, but because no one knows how to effectively respond. He's eventually brought down more by circumstance, by luck almost.
Not by any deliberate prepared strategy.
Not at all. It's pure reaction, pure chaos.
It's a perfect example of how lack of preparation just amplifies the problem, doesn't it? Turning a difficult situation into total pandemonium. Makes me think of all the stories we hear about companies caught entirely flat-footed when a scandal breaks or a crisis hits.
Exactly. And this is such a vivid illustration of why robust crisis preparedness is vital for organizations. Whether you're facing a major corruption investigation, a devastating cyber attack, or maybe a significant ESG controversy, chaos will reign if your company is unprepared.
And the costs are huge.
The cost of unpreparedness goes far beyond just immediate fines or legal fees. It can include lasting reputational damage, loss of market trust, even serious business continuity issues. And by the time regulators or the media arrive on your doorstep, it's far, far too late to start designing a crisis response from scratch. That's just a recipe for disaster. It almost guarantees a descent into chaos.
So how does a robust compliance program ensure a company isn't caught flat-footed like those poor villagers?
Yeah.
What are the key elements of a truly effective crisis management plan?
Right. The compliance takeaway here is that compliance programs must include robust crisis management planning as an integral component. It's not optional.
What does that look like in practice?
It involves having clear, documented incident response procedures that are understood and, importantly, regularly reviewed and updated by everyone involved. It means conducting regular tabletop exercises, simulations to test those procedures against various crises.
Like fire drills, but for compliance crises.
Kind of, yeah. Simulating data breaches, ethical violations, whistleblower reports, testing the procedures in a realistic but low-stakes environment. And crucially, it requires ensuring strong cross-functional coordination. So legal, communications, operations, HR, leadership. Everyone knows there are precise roles and responsibilities before a crisis hits.
So everyone knows the playbook.
Everyone knows the playbook. Preparedness is the crucial difference between an organization descending into chaos and one demonstrating resilience, navigating adversity with control, and hopefully confidence.
That's a powerful way to frame it. From individual madness fueled by invisibility to organizational resilience built on preparedness. It really seems the Invisible Man holds up surprisingly well as a timeless compliance allegory.
It absolutely does. You know, a Claude Rains' The Invisible Man endures, I think, because it speaks to something primal within us, that fear of what cannot be seen, what operates beyond our perception. Yeah. And for compliance professionals, it resonates so deeply because, let's face it, much of our work is precisely about uncovering the unseen. Those hidden risks, the opaque transactions, the subtle, often dangerous cultural undercurrents within an organization. It's a constant effort to bring light into those shadows.
The film becomes a kind of mirror, then, for the constant work of shining that light.
Exactly. The Invisible Man reminds us that risk is most dangerous when it's hidden, when accountability is absent. When systems fail to shine that crucial light into the shadows, the fundamental task of compliance, really, in every sense, is to make the invisible visible, to detect what others might not see, to enforce accountability without exception, and to ensure that innovation and power always operate within robust ethical and legal boundaries.
So, for you, our listener, maybe the real monster in an organization isn't invisibility itself, but the complacency that allows invisible risks to thrive unchecked. It makes me wonder, what invisible risks or blind spots might exist in your own organizational world, or even perhaps in your personal endeavors?
That's a great question to ponder.
What assumptions are you making about what you think you can see, and what might actually be operating unseen around you, simply because maybe you haven't taken the time to truly look. Something to think about.
Definitely.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
This is Tom Fox again. I hope you've enjoyed this special 5-part series on the Universal classic monsters and the lessons they bring to the compliance arena. I've taken an even deeper dive into each one of these monsters on blog posts, which supplemented the podcast and are found on the FCPA Compliance and Ethics blog. I've linked to them in the show notes, so check them out for more information about each of these characters and how they relate to compliance. Also, my guest host, Fiona and Timothy, are AI-generated voices. So I'd love to get your thoughts on having AI-generated voices for this special 5-part series. This is Tom Fox. I have produced and written these podcasts, and they are production of and for the Compliance Podcast Network. Thank you so much for listening.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.